Hi. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are currently on unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nation, and that my site that I've been working on is on the unceded lands contested between Lake Wautuck and Coast Salish First Nations. So, I've been doing honors research with Dana Lepovsky, looking at the changes in fauna on one site in Quadra Island. This is a clam garden, if anyone doesn't know what a clam garden is. It's a constructed landscape created to produce increased sustenance and especially increased area to both possibly better grow clams, or specifically bivalves, or some, as we're looking at right now, looking to just grow more. Here's Dana on a clam garden. So this specific clam garden is created on a hard sediment beach, which means that there was actually no beach there before this terrace was constructed. This is a pretty common structure here. Some beaches were already sand beaches, which are pretty good for growing clams. Here is a map of northern Quadra Island. So Quadra Island is the biggest of the Discovery Islands, which are a group of islands between the mainland and Vancouver Island. And here you can see the red dots are clam gardens, the yellow dots are settlements, and the yellow star is my site, also known as EBH 87, the magic site. Here's one of my column samples. So what I'm doing is analyzing the sediments from two columns. This is the older one, the bottom dating to 4,000 years ago, and the top dating to about 2,700 years ago. This was dug in 2015, and I have one other column sample from 2016 that's a bit younger, with the top dating to 500 years ago. So my major research questions are to do with fauna, especially relative densities. So the relative abundance of fish as it has changed through time, the relative abundance of clam species as they've changed through time, and also the growth patterns of little neck clams and how that's changed through time. This is one of the only clam garden sites that has continuous occupation over 4,000 years, which is really exciting and unique because we can actually see if a clam garden being located in this area is changing if clams are growing better or faster, or if it just means that there's more clams being grown in this one location. So my main methodology is looking at relative proportions within sediment samples that were taken from stratigraphically distinct layers at this site. So we're looking at the materiality of each of these sediment samples, and the main focus is shell and bone relative to other things such as lithics and other organic materials. The main two species that we're finding at this site are butter and little neck clam, but due to the not so great preservation of the butter clams themselves, we're not sampling those for sclerochronological analysis. So the next step to look at how clams are growing is to cut them up, put them on a slide, scan the slide, and digitally manipulate it on a computer. And what we're looking at is the first 3 years of growth, specifically to see if they're growing faster, which is kind of the main thing to look at, and if they're growing bigger when a clam garden is introduced. And here's me looking at some slides. So what have we learned so far? Mainly, we've found a lot of herring. Looking at the bones of the site, we've found, from the 2015 column, there's over 400 bones represented, and most of them are herring vertebra, which is, if you've ever dealt with herring vertebra, you know are very hard to count because they're so tiny. We were expecting to see some salmon. There is known use of salmon in this area, but so far I have found enough fragments to make 2 salmon vertebra out of 400, which is not a huge proportion. The next steps are to measure the lines. So when a clam is growing, it'll deposit a dark line during the winter months, and we're looking to see the first 3 of those lines, just the actual spatial differences between those, and by measuring those we can see if they're growing faster proportionally. So that's the next step. And thank you to these people.